a wheelchair, one chair across from it, and a blind date that should have lasted 5 awkward minutes, but instead, quietly changed 2 lives. Dagan Sevant didn't expect kindness that day, let alone connection. A once-renowned CEO now hiding behind silence, scars, and carefully scheduled therapy sessions. He came to the cafe because someone paid for his dating profile without asking. He planned to leave after 5 minutes. But the girl, Eva Cross, didn't flinch when she saw the wheelchair. She didn't offer help. She didn't offer pity. She offered conversation, and a line that made him laugh for the first time in months. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he had lost. And that, somehow, is what made it real. Before we dive into the story, comment below where you're watching from. Enjoy the story, everyone. Eva Cross was late. Not by much. Just enough to make her heart race as she rushed down the block in boots that had no business being worn this long. She wasn't even sure why she said yes to this. She hated blind dates. But then again, she hated feeling invisible even more. The cafe was small and half-pretentious. One of those modern vintage places where menus were handwritten in chalk and chairs didn't match. She stepped inside and scanned the room, suddenly aware of the ketchup stain on her sleeve and the way her coat smelled faintly like secondhand books and mint gum. Her eyes caught the table reserved for EC. There was someone already sitting there. A man, early 40s maybe, strong jaw, tailored coat, and a wheelchair. His hands rested neatly on his lap. He didn't look bored or nervous, just still. Eva's heart skipped. Was this a mistake? But then he looked up. Their eyes met, and something shifted. She took a breath, rolled her shoulders back, walked forward. "Sorry I'm late," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "City traffic? Or maybe I just needed dramatic tension." The man tilted his head slightly, surprised. "You're Eva. Last I checked. Unless I got swapped at the bus stop again." A pause, and then a dry, almost reluctant chuckle. "I'm Dag. Cool name. Very Viking meets tech startup." Another pause, a longer look. Then, "You don't seem surprised." "About what?" He motioned slightly downward with one hand, toward the chair. Eva shrugged. "Should I be? It's got wheels. So do I sometimes." Dag blinked. He was used to discomfort, or exaggerated sweetness, or the worst, people pretending not to notice but rearranging their entire body language. But this woman, in her thrifted coat and chipped nail polish, was sipping water like this was brunch with an old friend. "So, are you always this casual?" he asked. She grinned. "Only when I'm nervous." "Why are you nervous?" "Because you're staring at me like I just skipped an audition." He smiled. Not politely, actually smiled. Eva looked down at the menu and said, half to herself, "Also, I didn't eat lunch, so if I order 3 things, pretend it's normal." Dag let out a soft laugh, the kind that surprised even him. They ordered. She got soup and a sandwich. He just asked for tea. As they waited, Dag studied her. There was something worn but unbroken in the way she sat, like a lighthouse that had seen too many storms but still turned its light on anyway. Her eyes held something familiar, something quiet. He didn't know what to say next, so she filled the space. "So what do you do, Dag? Besides mysterious silence and eyebrow raises?" He hesitated. "Consulting. Vague. Dangerous. I like to stay off the grid. Like a charming doomsday prepper?" He tilted his head. "Like someone who used to be on every magazine cover, then decided maybe silence was underrated." She paused, catching something under the sarcasm. Fair, she said softly. We all have our reasons. Dag didn't reply. She didn't press. Instead, she told a story about how her last date got up mid-meal to take a call and never came back. Left me with the check and a very confused waiter, she added. Though I think the waiter was more into me anyway. Dag smirked. Did he ask for your number? No, she said. But he comped my dessert. And in my world, that's romance. The tea arrived. The soup. They ate. They talked. The hours didn't pass, they dissolved. And somewhere between a joke about pigeons in business suits and a debate over whether croutons count as bread or snack, something happened. Dag forgot the chair. Eva forgot the walls she kept around strangers. And both of them forgot this was supposed to be temporary. Until a man entered the cafe, nodded at Dag, and whispered something in his ear. Dag's jaw tensed. He turned to Eva. I have to go. That's okay, she said, masking disappointment with ease. He hesitated, then slid a small card across the table. Write your number? She blinked. Seriously? He nodded. I'll call. Unless you don't want me to. Eva took the card, wrote her number, then added a tiny doodle of a turtle in the corner. Don't ask, she said. Just felt right. Dag stared at the turtle, smiled, then left, rolling out the door into a sleek black car that didn't match anything about the man she just met. Eva sat there for a moment, then whispered to herself, well, that wasn't nothing. And it wasn't, because 2 days later, her phone buzzed with a message from unknown. What do croutons dream about? D. She stared at the screen, then smiled, why, and replied, floating in tomato soup. Obviously, Eva didn't expect him to actually text. She definitely didn't expect him to keep texting. But Dagan Sevant, the mysterious tea drinker in a wheelchair, turned out to be surprisingly consistent. Every couple of days, she'd get a question. The thought, a one-liner that made her smile in the middle of proofreading a cookbook for a client who couldn't spell rosemary. What if chairs have secret lives when we're not sitting on them? Can you fall in love with someone's silence? Do you think turtle doodles are good luck? To which she replied, yes, I bet they throw dance parties. Only if you know how to listen. Clearly, you texted back, didn't you? It was light, playful, safe, but underneath the jokes and rhythm, something quieter grew, something steadier. Eva didn't know much about him, still just consulting as a job, still avoiding questions about where he lived or what kind of tea he liked best. But he responded, always thoughtfully, always intentionally. And when she mentioned in passing that she hadn't had decent cake in months, he replied, I know a place. It was a Wednesday, cloudy. She had no plans, unless you counted editing a fantasy novella where the dragon spoke exclusively in haiku. He sent an address. The time. She hesitated, then said yes. The cafe he chose this time was smaller, warmer, tucked between a plant shop and a shoe repair that looked abandoned but still had flower pots outside. When she arrived, he was already there. Same chair, same calm presence. But this time he wasn't sitting near the door. He was parked by the window, watching the world like it was telling him something only he could understand. Eva slid into the seat across from him. You always get here early? I like the quiet before the world catches up. She smiled. And I like people who say things like that without sounding smug. He chuckled softly. Lucky match, then. The waitress came. Dag ordered coffee this time. Black. She raised an eyebrow. You drink coffee now? I adapt. Impressive. I panic and order whatever's on special. Sounds braver. Only if the special doesn't kill me. They got cake, 2 different slices. He chose something with cardamom and pear. She picked double chocolate and made a face like it was an apology. Dag leaned back. I googled turtle doodles, by the way. Eva froze. You what? Apparently, they're a sign of endurance and stability. She snorted. Now you're just trying to impress me. Is it working? She looked at him for a long moment. Yes, she said quietly. But don't let it go to your head. He smiled. That same quiet smile that had started to etch itself into the corners of her thoughts. For a while they just ate. No pressure. No questions. Until she broke the silence. So, is this a thing? These meetups? He didn't answer right away. Then, do you want it to be? Eva looked down at her fork. I don't really do things, she admitted. I freelance. I take care of my landlord's cat. I panic at IKEA. I'm not good at schedules. Or rules. Neither am I, he said. She glanced up. That surprises me. Why? You seem so contained. Dag tilted his head. I'm not contained. I'm recalibrated. She blinked. Wow, big word. Occupational hazard. Eva studied him. The way he didn't flinch under her gaze. The way he didn't try to fill every silence. The way he always answered honestly, even when it sounded strange. You ever going to tell me what you really do? She asked. He hesitated. Maybe someday. Cryptic, she said. Safer that way. For who? Dag didn't reply, and she didn't press. Instead, she changed the subject. Turtle's still on my fridge, she said. Next to a magnet that says, don't talk to me until I've had my regrets. He laughed. A real laugh this time. Deep and unexpected. She liked that sound. She wanted to hear it again. And again. They met again the following week. And the one after that. Sometimes at cafes. Sometimes in the park. Once at a bookstore where she caught him secretly reading the acknowledgments section of a poetry collection. You learn more from dedications than the poems, he said. You're weird, she told him. You're still here, he replied. Touché. And then came the Wednesday that changed everything. They were supposed to meet at their usual cafe. She arrived first for once. Ordered early. Waited. He didn't show. Not in 5 minutes. Not in 20. Not even an on my way. She texted. No reply. Then, as she stood to leave, she saw it. A sleek, dark car parked at the end of the block. And him stepping out of it. On his feet. No wheelchair. Just walking. Slow. Careful. But walking. Her heart caught. She ducked behind a parked car, breath sharp. Watched as the driver handed him a folded coat. Watched as Dag leaned on the door for a second, stretching one leg like it was made of lead. Watched as he finally noticed the time and got back in the car. He never looked toward the cafe, never saw her, but she saw enough. And in that moment everything unraveled. Who was he? What was the chair? What was she? A distraction? A test? Project? Her hands trembled, not from betrayal, from the weight of not knowing where she stood, or if she'd ever stood anywhere at all. That night she didn't text, and neither did he. Eva didn't sleep that night, not because of anger, not even because of heartbreak, because of the feeling she hated most in the world, being played. She'd seen it before. People putting on masks, testing others, pretending to be vulnerable just to see how others would react. But she hadn't felt that with Dag. Not once. Until now. And that made it worse. She paced the tiny hallway of her apartment, barefoot on cold tile, while the landlord's cat meowed at her like she was personally responsible for the weather. Her soup went cold on the table. Her inbox blinked with overdue edits. She didn't care. By morning, the silence between them was too loud. She typed out a message, deleted it, typed another, deleted that too. Then finally, I saw you, outside the cafe, standing. I don't know what to think. She hit send, and waited. No reply. By evening, her phone buzzed. One message. No apology. No defense. Can we talk? Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Magnolia Park. D. She stared at it for a long time. Then typed, I'll be there. The next morning was gray and heavy, like the sky itself was bracing for something. Eva walked to the park without music in her ears. No distractions. No makeup. Just wind-chapped lips and questions she didn't want to ask, but had to. When she arrived, he was already there. In the chair. Same jacket. Same stillness. Same unreadable eyes. She stopped a few feet away. You want to explain this? She said, arms crossed. Dag looked up at her. The wind moved his hair slightly, but he didn't react. I didn't lie, he said quietly. She laughed, dry, sharp. You didn't tell the truth, either. He nodded once. Fair. She waited. He didn't continue. So she snapped. Was I some kind of test? A kindness experiment? See who treats the poor cripple with dignity. No, he said, calm but firm. It wasn't that. Then what? You're clearly not paralyzed. I saw you walking. I'm recovering, he said. It's complicated. Try me. Dag exhaled. His hands folded in his lap. I had surgery, he began. Nerve damage. 2 months ago, I collapsed on my bathroom floor. Couldn't feel my legs. They diagnosed it as idiopathic spinal inflammation. Fancy words for your body stopped cooperating. I was in a hospital bed for 3 weeks. Then therapy. Then this. He gestured to the chair. I can stand. I can take a few steps. But most days, this is safer. More stable. Eva stared at him. And the car? The driver? The tailored coat and mystery job? What part of that is safe? He looked away. I didn't tell you everything because I didn't know if I wanted to be seen for who I was, or for who people expect me to be. And who is that? He paused, then looked back at her. My name is Dagan Sevant. I own a nutritional biotech company. Or I stepped down 6 months ago. I used to be the guy on billboards, keynote stages, interviews about green food revolutions. Now I'm the guy in physical therapy 3 times a week trying to button his own shirt without shaking. Silence. The weight of his words settled between them like fog. Eva swallowed. You know, if you just told me that on day 1, I probably still would have stayed. He nodded. But I didn't want someone who probably would have stayed. I wanted someone who didn't need the context to choose me. She looked away. That's a lot to ask from a stranger. I know. Another beat of silence. I didn't mean to deceive you, he added. But you did, she said, softer now. Even if your reasons make sense. Dag looked down at his hands. I wanted to know if someone could meet me where I was. Not where I used to be. Eva blinked. Her throat felt tight. You know what's funny? She said. I wasn't scared of your wheelchair. I was scared of what I felt sitting across from you. He looked up, surprised. I haven't wanted anything real in a long time, she continued. And then you showed up. Quiet, steady, present. I let myself believe this was real because it felt better than the pretending I'm used to. Dag looked at her, the way he had on their first date. Measured, thoughtful. It was real, he said. Eva stepped back. I don't know if I can believe that right now. I understand. I just need space. He nodded again. Take it. Then, almost as an afterthought, he reached into his coat pocket and handed her something. A folded piece of paper. She hesitated, opened it. It was her turtle doodle, laminated, pinned to a small card that read, "Some things are worth carrying." Her breath caught, but she didn't say anything. She turned and walked away. Dag watched her go and said nothing. That night, Eva sat on her windowsill, staring at the lights of the city. The turtle doodle lay on her desk. The words still burned in her chest. She didn't know if she could forgive him. She didn't know if trust could be rebuilt. But she knew one thing. He didn't try to make her stay. And somehow that meant more than begging would've. 2 days passed. Then 3. No messages. No explanations. Just space and silence until Sunday evening, when her phone buzzed again. One message, one line. Would you meet me again? One last time. I promise no tests. Just tea. D. Eva stared at it, then typed. Where? The location was unusual. Not a cafe. Not a park bench. Not a bookstore tucked between sandwich shops. It was a wide, open fountain plaza, nearly empty on a quiet weekday afternoon. Spring was trying to fight its way through the last remnants of cold, and the wind still carried a bite, but Eva came anyway. She spotted them first, the 2 chairs. Simple, wooden, mismatched, positioned just off-center near the fountain's edge. A thermos sat between them, 2 paper cups, paper bag, and then she saw him. Dagan was already there, in his wheelchair, jacket buttoned, scarf wrapped casually. He wasn't looking at her. He was watching the water, like it was giving him instructions. She walked up slowly, paused, raised an eyebrow. You always furnish public spaces now? That startled him. He turned and smiled. I have a very patient driver. He accepted bribes in the form of espresso. Eva nodded toward the thermos. Is this piece offering coffee? Chamomile, he said. I figured caffeine and emotions don't mix. She hesitated, then sat down across from him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said, quietly, So, this isn't a trap? No hidden cameras, he replied. Not even a metaphor? Only one. She raised a brow. The chairs, he said. They're different, but they still face the same thing. Eva blinked, then reluctantly smiled. That's almost poetic. Don't encourage me. They both exhaled. The tension softened, just enough to let air between them. He poured tea into both cups, passed one to her. She took it, held it for warmth. I thought a lot about what to say, he admitted. Me too. And I deleted 6 drafts. Dag smirked. Amateur. I deleted 12. That made her laugh. Not because it was hilarious, but because it was human. He looked at her. I don't expect forgiveness, he said. I just didn't want to disappear without saying this. She nodded, waiting. I didn't sit in that chair to trick you, he continued. I sat there because I didn't know how else to exist anymore. When I stand, I feel like a fraud. When I sit, I feel invisible. But when I was with you, I forgot to be either. Eva swallowed. That day you stood outside the cafe, she said. It didn't break me because you could walk. It broke me because I thought you didn't trust me with that truth. I didn't, he said honestly. But I wanted to. And now, I still want to. Silence again. Wind stirred her hair. She tucked it behind one ear, thinking. Then, my brother had cerebral palsy, she said. Dag looked up, surprised. He passed away 3 years ago, she added. He had a wheelchair too, and a favorite hoodie, and a laugh that only came out when I made bad puns. Dag didn't interrupt. He hated when people talked to him like he was broken, or worse, like he was some saint for existing. So when I saw you that first day, I just spoke, like I would have spoken to him. Not because I pitied you, but because I respected the space you were in. Dag blinked. Once. Slowly. I'm sorry for your loss. Eva nodded. Thanks. I still talk to him sometimes. Usually when I'm about to do something stupid. Did you talk to him about me? She smiled faintly. I told him I met a man who drinks tea and answers turtle doodles like they're sacred texts. What did he say? He said, sounds like someone who needs a second date. Dag let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. You're kind, he said. I'm honest, she corrected. Kindness gets misread. Honesty leaves bruises. I can handle bruises. Can you handle showing up? Again and again. Yes, he said. If you'll let me. Eva looked at the cup in her hands, then at him, then leaned forward. One condition. He straightened. No more disappearing. If you need space, say it. If you're struggling, say it. But don't ghost me behind the glass of a black SUV ever again. Dag nodded. Deal. She extended a hand. Shake on it. He reached for her hand, not with confidence but intention. Their fingers met, held. It wasn't electric. It wasn't cinematic. It was steady, human, true. They sat like that for a moment. Then she pulled her hand back and sipped the tea. By the way, she added, glancing at the bag. What's in there? Pastries, he said. I guessed. Badly. She peeked inside. Apricot scone, she muttered. Bold move. I panicked. It's forgivable. A long pause. Then she stood, dusted off her coat. He looked up at her, uncertain. Are you leaving? Not unless you're kicking me out. Never. Then I'm just standing. She grinned. We're balancing this out now, remember? Dag chuckled. You want to walk a bit? He asked. Slowly, she said. And only if you're not trying to race me. I'd lose. True, she teased. But I'd let you win. They moved together, her on foot, him wheeling beside her. Like two uneven but aligned puzzle pieces. Not perfect, not simple, but something new, something beginning. They didn't label it. They didn't define what was happening between them, but they kept showing up. Sometimes once a week, sometimes twice. Always simple, always quiet. Tea in mismatched cups. Walks at a snail's pace around the block. Conversations that hovered somewhere between the poetic and the absurd. Eva learned that Dag liked maps not just for directions but for their sense of hope. You only make a map, he said once, if you believe something's out there worth finding. She liked that. Dag learned that Eva collected sentences. She kept them scribbled in notebooks, on receipts, on napkins. I like words that taste like truth, she explained. Even when they sting. He liked that. They didn't talk about the wheelchair anymore. It was part of the rhythm now. Some days he walked a little. Most days he didn't. Eva never asked for updates. Dag never offered excuses. But he began to let her see the hard parts. The moments he winced when his hands trembled, or when his left leg seized up in the middle of a bookstore and he had to lean against her without a word. She never looked away, never made it about her. She just steadied him, said, "Breathe," and waited. It meant more than she knew. And slowly, against every rule he'd written for himself, Dag began to let her in. He showed her a space no one else had seen. A building tucked behind a rehab center on the edge of town. Quiet, faded. A plaque on the wall read, "The Langston Center for Adaptive Creativity." Inside, dust, silence, a piano with 3 broken keys, a rack of unused art supplies. "What is this?" she asked. Dag wheeled forward, slower than usual. "My sister ran it," he said softly. "Before she passed." Eva froze. "Oh, I didn't." She believed in giving people with disabilities a place to create without limits. No pity, no lectures, just paint and clay and sound. Eva looked around. The room still held echoes. Laughter, movement, color. Even if it was covered in dust now. "I promised her I'd keep it going," Dag added. "But when I got sick, I didn't come back. I told myself I couldn't be the face of something I didn't believe in anymore." She looked at him, really looked. "And now," he met her eyes, "now I think it's time." She smiled. Not big, not dramatic, just enough. "Then let's get our hands dirty." The next week she brought gloves, and coffee, and a toolbox that once belonged to her grandfather. Together they swept, they sorted, they reopened light. Eva pulled old art off the walls and planned a new mural. Dag made calls, not as a CEO but as a man rediscovering purpose. One afternoon, she showed up to find new lighting installed. Another day, he surprised her with beanbag chairs for the reading corner. "You're sneakily generous," she teased. "You're sneakily inspiring," he replied. And then came the article. It appeared online one morning. Dagan Sevant reemerges after months of silence. From biotech to blank canvases. Someone had leaked it. A photo accompanied the piece. Grainy, but unmistakable. Dag and Eva standing side by side, her holding a paintbrush, him in his chair, both smiling. It spread fast. Former investors, media, curious bloggers, and with it came pressure. Dag's phone didn't stop buzzing. His inbox overflowed. His board, the one he'd stepped away from, wanted a meeting. "They think this is PR," he told Eva. "A new rebranding. Let them," she said. "I don't want this to be about them." "Then don't let it." He looked at her, tired, torn. "I never wanted to be known for falling, or for recovering. I just wanted to matter." Quietly, Eva stepped closer, touched his hand. "You matter when you let people in, not when you prove something." He didn't answer, but his fingers closed gently around hers. The following Monday, she didn't see him. No messages, no tea invites. The center was locked. His chair wasn't parked by the door. The lights were off. Her heart twisted. By Tuesday evening, she was at his apartment door. She knocked, waited, knocked again. Finally, it opened. He stood there, without the chair, without his scarf, without a smile, just standing, barefoot, paler than usual. "You okay?" she asked. I panicked, he admitted. She blinked. About what? This. You. Everything. I thought I was ready. I thought I could be someone outside the chair and not lose what I found in it. She waited. Let him say the thing he was afraid to. But I keep feeling like I'll disappoint you. Eva tilted her head. Is that something you've been carrying alone all this time? He nodded. Then maybe it's time we carry it together. Dag looked at her. His breath caught. And slowly, as if the ground beneath him could vanish, he stepped aside. She entered. His apartment was not what she expected. Warm, lived in, books on the shelves, a framed photo of a girl, his sister probably, and a collection of old movie posters along the hallway. She sat on the couch. He brought tea. No words for a while. Then, do you think this is worth fighting for? He asked. Eva didn't hesitate. Yes. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. And if I fall again? I'll wait, she said. And when you're ready, I'll help you stand. Or sit. Or just breathe. A silence fell. But this time it felt like home. The relaunch of the Langston Center wasn't grand. Dag insisted on no press, no stage, no spotlight, just people. People who painted, scribbled, stuttered, rolled in quietly on wheels, or walked with hesitation but wide eyes. Eva helped decorate. She filled the front window with cutout paper shapes, turtles, of course, and quotes from kids who'd attended the center before it closed. One read, I like art because it never tells me I'm wrong. Dag arrived before the doors opened, sitting in his chair again. Not because he had to, but because it grounded him. He watched as Eva moved around the space in worn jeans and a flannel shirt speckled with paint. She laughed with a little boy holding a sparkly glue stick like a sword. She knelt beside a girl trying to build something unnameable out of foam and feathers. She never stood over anyone, always beside. That day she wasn't his date, or his conflict, or even his almost. She was his anchor. Near the end of the event, Dag spotted someone outside. An older man, familiar posture, brows furrowed. He felt his chest tighten. Board member, the same one who'd once said, the public doesn't need to see our CEO in a wheelchair. Confuses the brand. Dag didn't flinch. He rolled himself toward the door, opened it. The man blinked. Sevant. Don't come in, Dag said calmly. You don't control public property. I do when I've rented it. For this. The man raised an eyebrow. You realize this isn't helping your image. Dag looked at him evenly. I'm not building an image. I'm building space. He was about to turn when he added, also resigning from the board. Officially. Permanently. The man scoffed. To do what? Teach finger painting. Dag smiled. For real. To tell kids like me they're allowed to take up space, even when the world tells them to shrink. And then he closed the door. Behind him, applause. He turned. A small crowd had gathered. Not for drama. For him. Among them, Eva stood by the windows, holding a tray of juice boxes, watching him. Their eyes met, and suddenly the world quieted. He wheeled over. She waited. You didn't have to stand up to him, she said. I didn't, Dag replied. I sat. And stayed. She set the tray down. You ready to sit with me too? He asked, voice lower now. Eva looked at him. Long and soft and real. I never left. That night, they sat outside the center under string lights and leftover balloons. No speeches. Just tired limbs and gentle silence. She handed him a paper napkin. On it, A new turtle doodle. This one with a tiny cape. Dag laughed. What's his power? Showing up when it matters. I think I'm in love with you. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't rehearsed. It just was. Eva's voice trembled. I think I'm terrified. Of me? No. Of feeling seen. And seen through. It's easier being invisible. I know, he whispered. They sat like that, nothing more to say until the wind grew colder. Then she stood, stretched, and reached into her bag, pulled out a folded blanket, laid it across his knees like it was the most normal thing in the world. I don't want to fix you, she said. I don't need fixing, he replied. Exactly. Later that week, a letter arrived at her door. It wasn't from Dag. It was from the foundation he quietly supported. It offered her a permanent role as creative director of the Langston Center. The letter read, "We believe in building spaces that reflect the people who hold them. You've been holding this one long before it reopened." At the bottom, a hand-scribbled note, "Come shape something with me. D." She stared at it, then cried, not because she was overwhelmed, but because she finally felt ready. The following Friday, Dag returned to their fountain spot. 2 chairs already set up, a thermos of tea, one napkin flapping gently in the breeze. He approached. Eva was already sitting. "You're late," she teased. "I was letting you win." Again. He sat beside her, and when she reached for his hand this time, she didn't hesitate. It started with 3 mugs, 1 black coffee, 1 jasmine tea, and 1 chipped cup with a cartoon turtle wearing a cape. They sat on the windowsill every morning in Dag's apartment, like a quiet ritual no one dared to change. Sometimes Eva stayed the night. Sometimes she left after painting late at the Langston Center. But the mugs were always there, waiting. So was he, and so was she. They never declared anything. No official labels. No grand confessions. But the world around them changed anyway. The Langston Center thrived. What began with reopened windows and salvaged art supplies turned into a mosaic of sound and color and unexpected healing. Teenagers with stories too heavy for classrooms painted dragons across the ceilings. Kids who hadn't spoken in weeks used shadow puppets to narrate entire epics. One boy, who once refused to make eye contact with anyone, now led storytelling circles with a stuffed octopus on his shoulder. Eva called it creative mischief. Dag called it proof. And the rest of the city, they called it hope. One evening, after a particularly chaotic puppet class involving marshmallow armor and finger paint battles, Eva and Dag stayed behind to clean. He sat in his chair, peeling dried glue off his sleeve. She stood at the whiteboard, laughing at something a kid had written earlier. "Everyone deserves to feel loud. You know," she said, turning to him, "I've never seen you talk this much." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that a compliment or a concern?" "Depends. You still get weirdly quiet when I say something nice. Because I don't always know how to hold good things." She softened, crossed the room, sat on the floor beside him. "I'm not a good thing," she said. "I'm a real one. Messy, complicated, occasionally sarcastic. I like real. Then get used to me." He looked at her, long and steady. "I already have." Weeks passed, then months. Seasons turned. And one day, Eva stood on the balcony of their shared apartment. Yes, shared now, officially. Sipping tea from the turtle mug and staring at the city blinking below. Dag wheeled out beside her, wrapped in a soft gray blanket. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded. "Just thinking." Dangerous. I know. She paused. You still scared? Every day. Of what? He thought about it. Of forgetting how to stay soft. She turned toward him. Then let me remind you. He smiled, and for once didn't look away. On the anniversary of the center's reopening, they held an open mic night. Not for poetry, not for talent, just for voice. Anyone could share. A boy recited a love letter to grilled cheese. A girl whispered her late father's name like it was a lullaby. Then, near the end, Dag surprised everyone by wheeling to the front. He cleared his throat, looked at the room, looked at Eva, and said, I met someone at a blind date I didn't want to go on. She wasn't dressed fancy. She didn't flatter me. She didn't ask questions I was used to answering. She just sat down and said something that made me laugh. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I could stop performing. He paused. The room was silent. Then, she didn't try to fix me. She didn't praise me for surviving. She just gave me space to breathe. So if I leave you with one thing tonight, it's this. Love doesn't show up with flowers. It shows up with paint-stained fingers, mismatched socks, and a mug that says, Today is survivable. He looked at her one last time and smiled. The crowd clapped. But Eva, she just walked up, knelt beside him, and said, Took you long enough. Later that night, back home, she found a small box on the counter. No ribbon, just a sticky note. Before you ask, no, it's not a ring. I'm not that predictable. D. She opened it. Inside, a key and a folded piece of paper. Langston Center, Director of Story Development. Eva Cross. For showing up when no one else did. She stared at it, then turned as he rolled in, yawning. You're ridiculous, she said. I'm practical. You could have just said, I love you. I'm saving that for when I burn the toast. She kissed him. Not a sweeping, movie-ending kiss. Just the kind that said, We're still here. We're still choosing. The next morning, the 3 mugs sat on the windowsill. One for her, one for him, and one for whatever hope needed a warm place to land. Because some stories don't need a perfect ending. They just need someone who stays.